Good evening. I'd like to call this Public School Committee meeting to order. It is Thursday, October 5th. This meeting is being audio recorded and broadcast by WCTV, video recorded as well. Before we begin, I would like to have a moment of silence for Lynn Rhodes, who's a longtime Wareham Elementary School teacher for 30 years, who passed away recently. Thank you. We begin with public participation. We begin, thank you, April, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the over-under on April correcting me is 1, so let's see where we go. We start now with public participation. Does any member want to address the committee? Seeing no one, we'll move to good news. Who would like to share some good news? Joyce.
Today, the high school unified basketball team had their first game. They played against Riverview, and it was loads of fun to watch. So I believe they have a game every Thursday in October. Are they all at home?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, check the schedule. There's more home games on Thursdays. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Fay.
Yes.
I just wanted to share for anybody who might have missed it, we sent out an email and an all-call to parents. We will be sending out another all-call to parents and staff and any other community member. The CPAC, our Special Ed Parent Advisory Council, will be sponsoring a basic rights evaluation and eligibility webinar. It'll be held at 6 p.m. on October 21st, which is a Tuesday night. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. And the link to register for this is on our Wareham Public Schools website. I will also be sending out the link again shortly before the event happens. And if anybody is having problems with the link, they could just reach out to our office and we will be happy to help them register.
I know later in the evening we'll be hearing some good news about the student growth percentiles at the Wareham Elementary School, but we'll wait till our MCAS presentation to celebrate that, I guess. Brennan.
I do have one thing to bring up. October 12th, we've got the financial aid information night for all parents, for any students looking to go to college. I remember when I went to the financial aid night many years ago, but it was really helpful in kind of teaching me and my parents, the ins and outs of financial aid, of all the different sources available, scholarships, loans, everything like that. And I know it's a very, daunting thing and a challenging thing for a lot of parents. Go to there and you'll get a lot of the information you need and a lot of the resources that you need. So definitely put that on your calendar. It's October 12th.
Thank you. April?
And in that vein, October 19th, CYE is hosting a career opportunity event for students in the area at the Buzzards Bay Coalition Center in Onset. They'll have a lot of different career professionals to talk to students and to try to help them figure out where and what they want to do, and that's at 6 p.m. on the 19th.
I actually took part in that last year. I was one of the careers, for working in restaurants as a cook, and we had a great turnout. There was kids there. A lot of them were really interested, and hopefully it, can guide your student if they're not quite sure what they want to do yet. So I highly recommend that event too.
Thank you. Dr. DeAndrea.
The bulletin boards at central office have been decorated with student artwork from around the district. So next time you're in the central office, check it out. There's some really impressive artists in our district.
Nice. Thank you. All right, next up on the agenda is our student representative report. So Gisela, you are up.
So in the last couple of weeks at Wareham High School,
make sure that she has her mic with her and that it's unmuted.
thank you. It's on. It has a green light. Yeah, I think it's on. Thank you. As I was saying, the last couple of weeks at Wareham High School, there has been lots of club activities. Art Club has recently been preparing for the art fair that's coming up. There's been lots of Model UN meetings, JROTC meetings, and the Foreign Language Club has had a huge uptick in members, which is quite good as they were losing a lot of members due to COVID. And that is run by Ms. Rosen, who has brought a lot of energy to the school. The newspaper club has also had its first couple of meetings, which has been uplifting student voices for a long time at our school, and is getting prepared for our first article, or our first newspaper to be produced this year. Film Club just started their first movie today. They had technical difficulties last meeting, but has had a good turnout since the start of their club. As has been said before, the unified basketball team had its first home game at 3:30 today. Another club meeting for the drama club. Their show has been casted, which has been quite exciting. And then moving away a little bit from clubs, Dr. Roth, who runs the music program at our school, has claimed that Music Mondays has been a huge success and has had lots of students who are not only in music programs, but who aren't in music programs to get work done during that time. There's been students getting homework done and working on college applications while listening to some beautiful music. Going back to clubs a little bit, first we've had five new Haitian students who have come to our high school, and because of the quick transition and the lack of climate that's like the same, Key Club is planning on doing a drive for them so that they can have winter clothes while they are here. Many clubs are still trying to navigate the new Amazon ban. While a lot of clubs are figuring that out, a lot of advisors are also curious as to why that is happening. And now, moving away from clubs, Bridgewater students are around a fourth of the way through their classes, and from what I've heard, talking to a good amount of Bridgewater students, they are enjoying their classes. Also talking about CYE, they had their first meeting tonight at 6:30 and came and presented to the upperclassmen about opportunities available through CYE, through going to their meetings, and also the opportunities to be interns there. And then second to last thing, Credit for Life, which has been an important staple at our school, has just recently happened at our high school. For the seniors. It had a slight technical difficulty at the start, but to my knowledge, every senior was able to complete it, and there were lots of emotions going through it. People were excited about the information they were learning, also a bit, I want to say, anxious about the future, but overall, I think even though we're anxious, we're grateful to have this information for us. And very last thing, Student Council has been working tirelessly on homecoming. Just another club activity for you guys.
Thank you, Gisela. Any questions of Gisela? April?
So I know you mentioned that Key Club is working on a drive to help assimilate the students that we have. Have you noticed how well they're being received, or how well they seem to be adapting to Wareham High School?
Yeah, so I've only had one student in my class so far, but from what I've seen, there has been there's been multiple students assigned to each student to help them to get used to the climate here, not just in the United States, but in Wareham High School, and managing the schedules and helping translate. I had my guitar class today, and we had one student who is Haitian who, while couldn't understand a good amount of what everyone was saying, was able to connect through music. Even though it was only their first time playing guitar, we all got to jam out a little bit together. So I think that was a good connection that's been made.
Thank you.
Brennan?
I had two questions. For that drive, is there anywhere for the public to donate? If anyone who's listening now wants to donate some old winter clothes or anything, where can they do that? Do you have that information, or?
I do. So for winter clothes specifically, we are looking to raise not just old or used winter clothes. We're also looking for donations, but those would be to Colonel Stanton, who is at the high school, or donations could be dropped off at the front office, according to Colonel Stanton.
And the second question I had, you mentioned your film club. What movie did you do?
The fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh, okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Dr. Schwan?
Are you a member of the Key Club?
I am.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Gisella. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have the minutes of the meeting from September 21st. Anyone have any questions or corrections on those minutes? Joyce?
There was just a couple of date change, not date changes, vote changes, the counts, but I spoke to Jamie, and she was going to correct them. So she instructed me to say, we'll just vote. I mean, if there were no other questions, we would just vote, and she'll make those changes.
Okay, thank you. So do I have a motion to
So
accept?
moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have Jeff?
Jeff, would you like to weigh in on the minutes?
You guys hear him?
Nope.
No.
Last chance, Jeff? Mr. Swett?
Sorry, I was muted. I approve.
Thank you. So we are 500. Thank you. Next up, we have the Student Advisory Report.
Thanks for having us. I just want to reintroduce the students that are involved in our advisory club. And to my right is Brendan Tremblay, and we're very excited to have him back. And obviously, you know the person on my far right, Gisella, is here, and this is her 4th year on the advisory committee, and we certainly appreciate her work as well. So I'm turning over to them.
Good evening, everybody. So basically, with our little group that we have, we've done not too many things because school just started and we're just getting settled in, and there's not much we can do to really improve our school as a whole or the community, but we have in fact actually gotten compost bins through MassGov, and we are looking to use those around the school. So our goal is to start off with culinary with chef and allow him to use those compost bins for whatever he needs. And if that's a success, we're going to use our access bins to use in the cafeteria at school.
I think that was phrased perfectly. I guess, I don't know, I don't think there's really much to add. I think that was pretty good. Thank you.
So we've only had one official meeting so far, so it's just getting started. But what's really exciting for us, as we've discussed, is the chef also has a garden outside. So to be able to recycle this compost and use it in the garden, and our young adult students actually, they plant, they harvest, and they recycle the garden every year. So it's really a great project. And then we use some of the items that are grown in the culinary program, and Chef also donates a lot of the vegetables into the pantry and into the Kendrick House. So it's worked out really well, and I think it's going to be even better this year with the compost bins. They will be off-site. They will not be in the building. Just I see maybe some questions are coming up. So they will stay. Chef's going to put them actually on the other side of the fire lane, so they'll be far enough where they're not attracting rodents. But they're actually sealed pretty nicely, and they were free, and Gisella did all the research on that. Brennan's been helping us out with the logistics, and we've got a couple other members that couldn't be here tonight, and they're really working through this. So it's a pretty exciting project. And also, which they didn't mention, they were also through this free program, were able to get us recycling bins for many of the classrooms that didn't have them. So that's also a nice derivative of this program. We're also getting some recycle bins. So I think we're not only will we enhance Chef's Garden and recycle and repurpose, but we'll also have an opportunity to see more people recycling papers, plastic, et cetera, in the school.
Brennan?
My own question is, how can we help?
That's a great question. I mean,
Tell him he can come weed the garden.
yeah, that can be your job. I'll let you do that.
No problem. I'll get my son on it. He's a junior at the school.
Okay, I
He needs some
gotcha.
chores. But no, just, it sounds like, I mean, again, I know it's kind of the beginning of the school year, and you've
Right.
got so much, just to set stuff up and get stuff going takes a little bit. but
Exactly.
it sounds like you guys have a great program going, and just remember, we're a resource. We're here to help you, and we're happy to have you here and tell us about your success. So if you need something from us, ask. That's why we're here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
April?
I know you said you've had one meeting so far, but do you guys set goals ahead of time, like at your first meeting, of where your priorities lie and things that you want to try to accomplish at the beginning of the year? Or do you wait fully until you're able to conduct the surveys I know you guys have sent out to your fellow students? Or do you guys have sort of like a guideline of where you'd like to start and then present that to your fellow students?
Yeah, I would say like the other half of what you just mentioned is what we've worked on during our first meeting. So we've been really adamant about trying to figure out forms to send to the students to get their opinions on things about the school, how they're feeling, how they're doing, etc. And we're looking at creating one pretty soon. I'm not sure when, maybe in the next month or so. But we will definitely let you know when we get that posted and what our results may be.
Thank you.
I would also add, even though we don't have, we also set, I guess, like quite abstract goals of trying to empower students as much as we can. We see that with like the student advisory council meetings that we also have. So I think that's another way, even though it's not a one set goal that we have for the year. I think our overarching goal is to empower students and to try to have more student voices as we can, because it's beneficial for like us to be here, but I feel like getting as many students' voices a part of this process as we can is a huge goal for us.
Yes, I agree. It's much harder for just us two to like say what, like for the whole school. We can't really just like talk for everyone else, and we need them to like at least help us get a big point across and to help improve the school as much as we can.
I love the fact that you guys and our district in general is so focused on student voice and letting you guys kind of guide your education, since you're the ones that are going to be using it. So I think it's great that you guys have been on this council for as long as you have, and I think it's a huge, benefit to not only the district but the community that you guys are able to, use your voice and advocate for what will make your education the most impactful. So thank you.
So Brandon and Gisela, thank you very much. Good luck the rest of this year, and we'll look forward to hearing back from you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Sweat. You have a question?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
I had a question.
Go right ahead.
I had a question of the student. I had a question of the student.
No, come back.
Go, yep.
Mr. Chair, if I raise my hand on the screen, is anybody looking at the screen so they can tell that I've raised my hand?
Not quite.
We can't have it both ways. He's pointing in the direction that he...
You know what? I'm going to join the Zoom meeting, and so when he raises his hand, I will know it.
Got it.
Okay.
All right, we got that solved. Go ahead with your question, Jeff.
Thank you. So as usual, I'm grateful for your presence, and you're giving up a portion of your evening to be here. I have a question regarding the new 8th graders. What is your assessment of how they're doing, number one, and do they are positive? They are having a positive or negative impact on the educational environment of the school?
Oh, whoa, I don't know. That's a tough question to ask these guys, I think, Mr. Sweat.
Yeah, we got this.
But I'll let them try.
What would you say? I would say that.
I don't ask easy questions.
Oh yeah, it's always good to have tough questions. So, I would say the 8th graders. I mean, a lot of them are really immature. They're coming from middle school, and I mean, they're not even supposed to be at the high school level, like being around upperclassmen, because they would typically be the highest in like middle school and stuff. So, I mean, they're gonna have to take a little while to adjust and get used to being around the school and learning how to behave and all that other stuff. But I mean, it's always great because we get to tackle on like another grade and get to watch them like grow and see like how they change as people in general. And I would say that I'm not sure if they're making a positive impact because like I'm not typically around those people, but I mean, probably as the year goes on, I'll hear more and we can figure out like how they're doing and all that stuff and if they are making a positive impact at the school.
Good answer.
I would also say, in like our core educational classes, 8th graders aren't in those classes with us, but when it comes to our classes such as culinary or in our clubs, they obviously make a presence there. And all upperclassmen, sometimes they roll their eyes and they say, ugh, I wish these 8th graders weren't here. But I think in the end, it creates another learning opportunity, especially in clubs. Being in like theater, it's interesting to like teach 8th graders to like stay on topic and to like explore things that they're passionate about, while also being able to teach ourselves how to teach people.
Exactly.
And to keep ourselves to a level of maturity, because all teachers say this and we don't like to admit it, but they truly do try to either impress us or like, because they see us as these older people who are like so fancy or whatever, or they try to emulate what we're doing. So it's hard to say, yeah, they make school so much better, but I think overall they make the education, especially in classes that are considered not to be as necessary, they add another level of education to them that I think is necessary.
I also believe that another way that they help like us upperclassmen is that we can look at them and realize that we were them once before, and we get to like see how we like actually could have been as an 8th grader coming into high school. I mean, unfortunately, we had remote during the COVID and everything, but I mean, that just goes to show like maybe that's how we would have actually acted if we were able to be in person at school. So it's pretty cool to think of it that way.
April, and I'll let Jeff go again in a second.
That's actually what I was going to ask was, do you notice a difference? But I didn't realize that you guys were coming into the 8th grade during the COVID remote time, because I know my son's grade was the first group of 8th graders to go through. And I myself went to a senior high school that started in 7th grade. And I remember looking as a 7th grader at the seniors and thinking they looked like adults, which now looking at seniors, your children. But it's very interesting, the change in perspective that you noted, that, you know, you guys sort of have that like, oh, they're a little bit annoying, but oh wait, I was annoying a couple years ago. So it's interesting to hear you acknowledge that it's in watching the growth. So the fact that you can realize that it's all part of the interconnectivity of going through high school is pretty cool.
And so as a former 7th and 8th grade junior high principal, and as a current 7th through 12th school set up assistant principal, I will just remind everyone that 8th graders are people too. And
if not, they fit into lockers.
They deserve our respect, and I understand, we all understand. We've all been 8th graders at one time, so. Mr. Sweat, another question?
No, he does not.
Thank you.
All right.
No,
I just
and
thank you
thank
guys.
you very much for the articulate and thoughtful answers.
Definitely. All right, next up, we have Melissa Fay with the Special Education Paraprofessional Handbook. This will be an item we vote on tonight.
So in your packet, you should have a copy of the draft form. And this is a handbook that came to our attention at a directors meeting for the state, and also our local directors meeting for the Cranberry group that we have in this area. And the importance of having a handbook for new paraprofessionals, or for paraprofessionals in general, because we have not had one in the past. So we actually adopted this version from Bedford Public Schools, which is approximately the same size as we are, with about the same number of paraprofessionals. And we really liked a lot of the content. We did review this with the association, and we had paraprofessionals, senior paraprofessionals from every building review it and give feedback. made a couple changes based on those conversations and collaboration together. And what you have in front of you is our final draft that we're asking for a vote on tonight so that we may implement this as soon as possible.
Any questions or comments about this draft? Joyce, and then April?
I don't have any questions. I just think it's great. I'd love to hear that you talked it over with the association and with paraprofessionals. I think any time you can put your expectations in writing is a good thing, so
Thank you.
thanks.
April?
So previous to this draft, there was no handbook specifically for paraprofessionals. Were they under, what guidelines did they use before you discovered that this was something that needed to be implemented?
So there is a job description for a paraprofessional, but it's pretty vague, like most job descriptions are. So I think that what I liked when we were going through all of the different drafts that we collected is this gives a lot of examples on how to deal with different situations with teachers, with other staff members, with parents in communication and meetings, and also with students. And I liked that it gives some very specific examples that people can go in and use if they're having an issue or struggling in an area. And it really lists out the kind of the expectations of what a paraprofessional would do. And so what the feedback that we got from the association and the paraprofessionals that participated in reviewing it was that they wish they would have had something like this when they started.
So do other units that are in front of children, do they have handbooks already district-wide, like teachers, nurses? They're already, is this the only unit that did not have a job-specific handbook currently? Or are there other areas that are operating without a handbook?
So under my department, I know that we have a special education procedural manual that has all of our procedures and information in it for our special education teachers and related service providers. I could not answer that. I'd have to.
Teachers have a handbook.
Okay.
So is it just teachers and now paraprofessionals, that there's no like employee handbook for like custodians or for nurses, administration? I'm just trying to get a picture of this is, something that we're looking to implement for one particular thing. Is this something that we should be paying attention to when it comes to other units, just to have a standard operating procedure?
I mean, I think it would be a great idea. I can't answer whether or not we have that because I'm not sure, but I would say that this would be a great idea, especially for newer members.
That's something I can get you more information, and perhaps we can
Okay.
report
Thank
out
you.
at another meeting. Yeah.
And I know one of the purposes of the nurse point person would be to create that and also a webpage for the nurses with resources for families. So we're going to be creating one of those soon and be bringing it to you for approval eventually.
Thank you.
Brennan?
I just have one quick question. Reviewing it, it looks great, as far as all the, like you said, the examples that it gives. I'm just curious, does this in any way set up any expectations that aren't reflected in their current job description or contractual setup or anything? Is there going to be any kind of conflict there?
Yeah, no, and that's the main reason why we included the association from the very beginning, is to make sure that they reviewed it and that the paraprofessionals that were in the buildings, the senior members of the association in that unit, reviewed it so that we made sure that there wasn't anything in there that went against their contract. It's more, I see it as more of a guide, like an everyday guide of if you have a problem or an issue or a question, that you can turn to something to get an example of how to get through it. So I think that that's probably what my main purpose is of having it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you and your group for putting this together.
Thank
It looks
you.
like a solid document. Dr. DeAndrea?
Mr. Sweat has a question.
Okay, Mr. Sweat?
Listen, do you make any significant changes from the draft that you started with?
We did make, and I could get you the exact changes because I have the working document with the changes in it. They weren't significant changes. There were a couple of things that weren't really relevant to us, and we had to put our own programming in it because most of our paraprofessionals, as you know, work in our programs for special education, the majority of them. So we wanted to make sure that we outlined our own programming in here and took out the programming that was from the original document from Bedford Public Schools. But they were minimal changes. I would say we maybe made 3 changes.
That's fine. I don't need it. I don't need a list. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
So do we have a motion to accept the handbook?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Mr. Sweat?
Aye.
Thank you. 500. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kristen Flynn, the Director of Finance, with the budget transfer.
Good evening. I have a budget transfer for your consideration tonight. What we need to do is make an adjustment between our vendor transportation lines. One line is for special ed transportation, and that would be to our out-of-district placements for students who don't get driven on our school buses. So these are for the contracted vendor services. So what we need to do, what I'm requesting, is to transfer $70,000 from the special ed line into the regular education transportation contract services line. And that line item is for our McKinney-Vento or homeless transportation students and our foster students. So we're finding that we have more students that are requiring the out-of-district transportation for the foster students. Currently, we're transporting 5 foster students and 7 homeless students on vendor transportation. So we need to just make a small adjustment between the 2 lines.
Joyce?
Has there been a change in the amount of students that you're transporting? Is that what increased the expense?
I think so. I think based on what we had looked at last year at this time, this one's always very difficult because I always look to the past to predict, to budget for the future, and these populations are very transient. So it's quite possible that during the course of the year that some of the students that we have secured transportation for the school year will not be here. So some of them are in and out, so it is very difficult. So we do have more students than we had expected.
In the 70,000, do you, based on what you have now, your expenses, will that last through the end of the year, or?
Well, what we have for the students that we are aware of, we have encumbered for the whole year. So right now, that should be okay. But what we're finding is that almost several times a month, we're getting letters from other districts for cost shares for homeless students that we're not aware of, or we're getting, notifications for foster students that we were not aware of. Mm-hmm. So it's really, unfortunately, it's hard to say. We do have some funds in the special education transportation line available. So, between those 2 line items right now, I think we're okay, but these 2 particular lines change very frequently.
Okay,
April?
thank you.
So just so I'm clear, McKinney-Vento, we normally get a reimbursement for that at some point in the future for this. So this is like a transfer for now, knowing that at some point when those funds are delivered to us from the McKinney-Vento for the state or federal, however that is allocated, that will sort of kind of nullify, like put that back in that budget, or does that go into LEA? Like, how does that balance out?
Yes and no. So this budget here is the LEA budget. So the funds that we get reimbursed from the state are based on your previous year's experience. So when I file the end of year report for last year, the Department of Ed will take a look at what we filed for, and you only get reimbursement for homeless transportation. You don't get reimbursement for foster transportation currently. So they'll take a look at that, and they will reimburse it to the towns, not directly to the school district. So there'll be funds last year around, I think it was around June, the town received funds for the previous year for what we had filed. So then it takes the school department, the school committee, at a future town meeting to request that those funds be appropriated back to the school department, and that would go into the transportation revolving fund. So we do have a separate revolving fund for transportation for any suitable transportation expense.
So is there a particular reason that it has to go through so many steps? Like, why doesn't it get directly reimbursed to schools? Why does it have to go back to the town? Is that something that needs to be changed legislatively? Is that something that, like, MASC would have something to do with and communicating with DESE on how that reimbursement is gone? Or is it like is there a reason that it has to go to the town, and then we have to go to the town, and then ask the town to give us back the money that it just seems like a vicious circle for no
It is,
reason.
yes, it is. It's what's called a general fund receipt, so that means it would be, I think, what you said, something in the legislature that would have to change, that would be appropriated directly to the school committee. I don't know what's involved with that, but that is the vehicle for that. And for homeless transportation, it's a cost share with the other district, so that helps out, so the rates are lower. Right now, with our homeless students, we are transporting between Wareham and New Bedford and Wareham and Franklin. And for our foster students, currently we're transporting between Marshfield and Wareham, New Bedford, Plymouth, and Middleborough.
Any questions, Mr. Sweat?
Hold on. No, he does
I'm
not.
all set, thank you.
He does not.
Thank you.
I just have one.
Brennan, question?
Do you know what the line item budget, the final number was last year for this? So like it says the revised budget is 154,000 and change. Do you know what it was last year? How much of a deficit are we creating over what it was last year? How much are we going to need to make up?
I don't have that available right now, but I can certainly look it up.
Okay, so we have a rough idea.
Do we have a motion to accept this transfer?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Swett?
Aye.
Thank you, 500.
Does it have to be all roll call if he's, no?
We're good, 500 at the moment. Thank you.
You might, I
Right.
think you're right.
Sorry.
All right, we have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, good evening. You have my superintendent's newsletter, and first up is the bills and payroll warrants, so I ask that you approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Swett?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
500.
Aye.
Included in your packet was a list of vehicles, 21 vehicles, 12 big buses, 3 special education buses, 5 special education vans. These vehicles are no longer in service. They are in what we call our transportation graveyard. Our transportation department has stripped all of the vehicles of any parts that are salvageable and can be used again. So what we ask is that for the school committee to vote them obsolete at this point, and we can have them sell them for scrap metal.
April, question?
Can you repeat the numbers of the buses again?
There's 21 vehicles total. 12 of them are the big buses, 77 or 71 passenger buses. 3 of them are special education buses, which are about 24 to 30 passenger vehicles, and then 5 special education vans, which are about 8 to 10 folks per van. And then there is 1 vehicle, Chevy Traverse, which I don't know what was used for. It's 2009.
So have all of these been replaced already, or, so these have all already been replaced? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Motion to declare these vehicles obsolete.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Swett?
Aye.
Thank you. 500.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, report of the school committee, policy subcommittee?
So the Policy Review Subcommittee did meet for our first meeting last night. I'm not prepared to present the results of that as of yet, Jamie being out today, but I will have those, that information at our next meeting for the policies to be read and voted on by the school committee.
Thank you. In the alumni subcommittee, we're still in need of more nominations, so if the public would nominate people that you think represent Wareham well and that have a good experience in the Wareham schools, go to our website and you can click on and submit them, and we will do a write-up on them. All right, next we have principal reports. And for these reports, because you're going to deal with instructional issues during your MCAS presentation, you don't have to talk about instruction right now in your report. We'll focus on good news, attendance, and events, I guess, going forward. So we'll start up first with Jane Fondulis in the PASS program.
I'm going to be very quick. Good evening. So the Past Night School program is underway. We have 26 students, 7 of which are school choice, and presently 6 of my students this semester are seniors. Some will be finished with their coursework in January, others will finish up in June. The good news for us is the superintendent approved. We now have extended to the 4th night, so we now go Monday through Thursday evenings. And this was a need because we have many students coming to us now with very few credits, and so we needed to offer some extra courses. The Thursday night classes are really, don't cost us because one is with our partners, and so they are, donating their time and teaching the class. And then the other class, which is called MyCap, is facilitated by my site coordinator and my counselor. So, and then of course we have the high schools. Mr. Breda is doing culinary arts for us in night school, which is a first, and the kids are loving it. So we're able to now offer some electives.
Great.
So that's where we're at right now.
Any questions of Ms. Fondulis?
No.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Palladino.
Mr. Chairman, is it okay if they all just come up?
Sure, come on up.
Since we're all going to be,
Should I get up there too then? I have to run the machine.
as soon as you run the PowerPoint, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick them out though, of their seats.
Sure.
Okay. Well, this one will be short since you're going to hear our presentation in a few minutes on the MCAS. But we're very excited to tell you that our overall attendance for the students was 94.1% for the month of September. And traditionally, September is a tough month because we're cleaning up kids that may have moved, and so they do count against you for a few days when they're there. So overall, 94.1 we were very happy with. Staff attendance, 97%. Traditionally, our staff attendance is anywhere between 96 and 99%, depending on the month, so we're right there. Some good news. I know a lot has been said, so I apologize for reiterating these things, but it was pretty cool to see the unified basketball team back in action today, and they had a great game, very tough opponent, a lot of fun. And as I think it was Brendan mentioned, the financial aid night on October 12th is definitely a must-attend for all seniors and juniors. So we had Credit for Life, as Gisela mentioned, last Friday, and there was a technical glitch from the bank, but they were able to overcome that issue and get everything up and running in a very timely manner. And I know, Joyce, thank you for coming over for that, and Dr. DeAndrea was able to make it over. It's always a highlight of the senior year for the students. And this year, we moved it to the fall and kind of took it out of March Madness, so to speak. And I think it was a great move to have it in the fall. There aren't a lot of events going on. You don't have to worry about the basketball team needing the gym for practice as they're going into the state tournament. So it was really exciting, and the students really appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate Cape Cod 5 and all of the companies that had workers that donated their time. And it was just a great event. Another great event that I want to highlight for all sophomores, juniors, and seniors and their families is the All Cape College Day. I had a chance to go down a few times to this, and I encourage anyone. It's free and it's open to the public. It's at Barnstable High School, and it's Wednesday, October 18th from 3:30 to 5:30. The Barnstable High School gymnasium is probably about 6 times the size of Wareham High School's gymnasium, and they pack the gymnasium with every school you can imagine from all over the country. Obviously, there's a heavy Northeast presence there, and it's a great opportunity to meet with admissions counselors, to get information about schools, and just meet and greet some people, and kind of start laying the foundation for their post-high school experience. So again, it's free, Barnstable High School, October 18th, 3:30 to 5:30. Our Spirit Week is coming up, October 16th through 20th. It's definitely the teacher's favorite week of the year. Students are very excited. Culmination is a pep rally on Friday, October 20th, and then the football game against South Shore Voc Tech later on that night. And after that, of course, the next day, on Saturday, October 21st, is the homecoming dance. And definitely, that is a go-to event for any student that's at Wareham High School, and we usually get between 300 and 350 students to attend. So it's a really great event in the high school cafeteria. And that is my report until we get to the MCAS.
Thank you. April?
So I know your attendance numbers seem great, but can you give me an average, like what your average class size is right now and about how many school choice students the high school has?
Wow, average class size. I'm not really sure. I would speculate, you know, obviously we could look at small group, special ed, those numbers are going to be low. Our college prep, we're going to be high. Our inclusion going to be high. I mean, I need some time. It's not like I have 6 grade 8 classes and I can tell you they average 24. It fluctuates. It takes about 4 hours to get that report to you. So certainly, I'm sure at some point in time it will be on the agenda, but it's, our classes, I think we're in a good place with class size. Our teachers teach an extra period so we can keep those class sizes down, and it's worked really well, but I'd certainly need probably about 4 hours to get that. It's not a report we can just run on Power School. Certainly don't have that on top of my head.
Okay.
And school choice, we'd have to do the same thing. That would be a little easy to get, though. That's just one report, and we could certainly get that. But I can tell you we don't have a lot of school choice. We haven't accepted a school choice student in over 2 years.
Is there any particular reason that we haven't accepted, whereas we are a district?
I can't fill a schedule. There's 2 periods where I don't have enough teachers available to teach classes. So it's very difficult to do that. I've got to take care of the kids that live in town first. That's my priority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy, want to go next for middle school?
Sure. Wareham Middle School, our staff attendance is at 97% for September. Student attendance is at 95%. We just had pictures. That was an exciting day this week. We're also partnering with Buzzards Bay Coalition. Actually, the entire district is. We have a grant with them, so we're starting field trips to Onset. The kids are really excited, and they sound like awesome field trips. So maybe one of our initiatives when we talk to the school committee will be about that partnership, because there's a lot of exciting things going on with them. We're halfway through term 1, so progress reports went home today for Wareham Middle School students, so that's also some exciting news for us.
I'm going to ask the same 2 questions. So like what, if you have, I know it might be easier than the high school where they have so many electives and honors and other things.
Definitely is. I didn't look at class sizes.
I'm not looking for an exact number, but
I
I'm
would
just.
say our class sizes are around 20.
Roughly, okay.
Yep. And I don't know the school choice number. We do accept school choice, and we have the problem, not the problem, but the reason why I don't know is they roll over. So once you accept a child into school choice, Bethany could have accepted them in kindergarten in school choice, and then they just continue into school choice. So I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
And Wareham Elementary School, Bethany.
Wareham Elementary School, 98% staff attendance, and we have 95% student attendance. So we like that number, and we're going to continue working for our goal to keep our attendance very high, and we're very excited. I thank the guidance counselors for doing their due diligence each and every day for sending out the student attendance and cheering on the kiddos for being there every day. What do we have going on? We have tonight a preschool kindergarten showcase happening. I just left with where families have the opportunity to go into the classroom again and see what the kindergartners and preschoolers have been doing for the first month. They don't do the traditional open house because they do have an orientation to meet the teacher already, so this is an opportunity for them to showcase work, so that's what we call it. So that's happening here at Wareham Elementary School tonight. In addition, Chair will be happy to know that we've started a basketball clinic at Wareham Elementary School thanks to Coach Fortune. Mr. Fortune has started a Friday afternoon session with our grade 3 and 4 girls, and I have 62 sign-ups, so it's very exciting. Some basketball happening at the elementary school. A student council just began at Wareham Elementary School. We have some initiatives working with the Key Club for Veterans Day. We're getting ready for the holiday fair, lots of exciting things. We have our annual Pumpkin Story Walk on October 30th, where the students decorate and the younger grades bring a book that showcases their pumpkin, and then the grades 3 and 4 students write their story and create a pumpkin. So much fun. That's October 30th. Our picture day is October 19th. And that's what's happening.
Same two questions.
Yes, we have school choice students. I have to get that to you, Ms. Rossi. I'm not sure. I do know we do get a lot of school choice requests into Wareham Elementary.
And do you have a rough idea of your class sizes?
Yes, I do. In kindergarten, we have roughly 18, grade 1, 19, 20, grade 2, 17, 18, a little bit lower, grade 3, 22, grade 3, 22, and grade 4, about 20, 21.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I know, just maybe I'll direct this to Dr. Andrew and all the principals, that the selectmen were having this Veterans Day Parade again, and they'd asked the school to try to participate. Are we undergoing plans for that, or do we know who's participating yet?
We are, yeah, JROTC, okay, has kind of taken the lead on that.
Okay.
And there's a number of different groups in the schools that are participating. So there'll be a pretty impressive showing, I anticipate, from the school department.
Great. Thank you. Brennan?
I have a question for all three of you. Last year, we asked you the question, what can we do to help? And you guys all talked about attendance. Clearly, whatever plan you've got in place is working, because I've seen the numbers going up and you guys seem really positive about it. So what's the next biggest issue that we can help you with?
Make sure we can maintain the current level of staffing.
Okay. Yeah, I've been saying that you were short teachers. That was kind of surprising to me, so we'll make sure that we work on what we can do on our end for that, but...
Make that happen, you'll have 3 very happy principals, I
Okay.
can assure you.
What's the issue? Is it we're not enough qualified candidates, not enough money to hire them? What's the problem?
Well, I know, I can only speak for the high school. Every year we're making cuts to staff, and it has a residual effect. We were very fortunate the last year we were able to write a grant through DESE and get a couple positions back. But every time in the high school, like for instance, we cut a history position last year. Now those electives are gone. So now there's less opportunities for our students to be in those classes because I'm required to run world history, grade 8 history, U.S. History 1, U.S. History 2, because that's all part of the graduation requirements, part of the Mass Core. So what it does is it really tightens. I mentioned there's 2 periods where I really can't fit a kid into a class. It makes it very difficult when you're not able to run electives because you have an 8-period schedule. There's only, 6 core classes, 5 core classes that you need to run, depending on the grade level. Then you have to fill those up with electives. So electives become important at, I think, all levels, especially high school and middle school. And when we're cutting, those are the ones, that get cut. The year before that, we cut a science. We don't have a computer science class running now. Again, those were electives, they're cut. And I know it's like, it's the cost of doing business. I understand at the end of the day, we have to balance our budget. It's certainly not pointing figures, but that's what has happened over the years. When I first started, I would keep track every year of the positions we cut, and then it just got depressing. It's tough. It's really tough, but it's not unique to Wareham, so I don't want to sound like the sky is falling. It's
we
just
need to know what the
everyone
problem is to start to solve it, so and I appreciate your
solve
answer.
that, we would be very happy.
I'll try.
April?
Just not necessarily related, but it was a reminder of a question I wanted to ask about the high school. How many students, I know I was asking other ones, but how many students are enrolled in like the AP and IB programs?
There's a lot. I think it's over 100 between the 3 advanced, but I could certainly, I would want to get you an exact number, but it's very high this year, and we anticipate, now coming out of that pandemic situation.
Is that including dual enrollment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and again, I could get you an exact with a breakdown, IB, AP, dual enrollment, but it's very high this year, one of the highest years we've had ever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I would say going forward, if you have particular questions, like these are all great questions, maybe you can funnel them to me and I'll get them out to Dr. DeAndrea and we can have the information ready at that meeting. But good questions, thank you. All right, so I don't think you're going too far maybe, but we have Dr. Schwam is now going to present the MCAS report.
Okay, so I'm going to begin.
Okay, Dr. DeAndrea will begin the report.
Okay. So before we begin, and as we get set up here. I'll wait till we get set up.
Scott, can you press that orange? The orange. Is it blinking?
You can-
Okay, good.
You want to move them? Sure. You just got to be careful on this cord.
He wanted to see the presenters,
Yeah,
not
so-
the presentation.
Yeah, so he yeah, go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
Right, you just don't want to block them, got it. Okay, so I just want to begin by saying first some thank yous. Thank you to Andrea, first and foremost. She's done a tremendous amount of work on this presentation. There's lots of numbers, lots of data, and to put it all together and make it in a way that is understandable is a skill. So
Dr.
thank
DeAndrea,
you.
just to interrupt for 1 second, I just want to remind the committee members that I'm going to ask that we let the presentation go in its entirety, and then we'll have questions at the end. So if committee members have questions as they're talking, just jot them down, and then at the end, anyone can ask anything at that point. But I'd like the floor to go to the presentation tonight. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I also want to thank the principals and their staff here, because of course, they take those presentations and prepare to present the information, and of course, our teaching staff for all their hard work with our students. How the presentation will unfold tonight is Andrea and I will take you through some just initial points, talking a little bit about SGP and DART, and then each principal and APs will go through some of their data from each of their buildings. As we look at this MCAS data, there certainly are areas to celebrate, areas that we really showed some significant growth. And then, of course, there are also areas where there's much work to be done. There's good news, and there's news that tells us we need to really dive in and see where we can make some improvements. Okay, so core values and missions. I always like to begin with this and remind us all why we're doing this work. The core value up there, perseverance. I think I've seen a lot of that in not only in our students but in our staff. Really getting in there. It's a day-to-day love of the work, and it can be super challenging at times. So perseverance is extremely important, and that is to foster learning that challenges everyone, as is outlined in our mission. And same with vision. You can see persevere is in there right in that middle section. Again, I'm always impressed with, as I work with these folks across the district and going into classrooms, seeing the hard work and perseverance that goes behind it. Our priorities, these are the priorities and promises that we've outlined in our strategic plan. Of course, first is student learning, and then the necessary components that all really boost that student learning, social, emotional learning, college and career life, professional development, professional learning, and digital convergent, all bolster that student learning. That is our main focus. Okay, DART data. Let's talk a little bit about DART. And before we do that, I'd like to talk about SGP. So we have SGP here. So student growth percentage, and this is something that you're going to see a lot of tonight. And there's a lot of words up there, but I want to focus on the first sentence. SGP measures the degree to which a student's achievement has changed from the prior year to the current year compared to other students in the same grade who performed similarly in the past. So in other words, they take, if a student's in 5th grade, he takes the MCAS, they take students, I think it's 100 students from across the state who have the exact same scores as that student in 4th grade, and they compare to how he performed in 5th grade. If that student performs better than all of those students that are what are considered his academic peers, if he performs better than all of them, his student growth is 99%. If he performs better than none of them, it's 1%. And if he performs better than half of them, it's 50%. So, and that's kind of outlined. It says, it has this student, John Smith, and believe it or not, when I was a teacher here the first time, I had a student named John Smith, but this is not him. But, so John Smith got, currently a 5th grade student, has a student growth of 65 in English language arts, which means that John improved more between grades 4 and 5 than 65% of students statewide with a similar historic pattern of MCAS test scores. If he got a 44, as he did in math, that means that it was only more than 44% of students with a similar MCAS score history. And then it's calculated on the individual level. It's also calculated on the grade level just by taking the average, and at the building level. This is why there is no student growth percentage in grade 3, because it's the first year they take MCAS, so there's no previous group to compare them to. Does that make sense? All right. So, this brings us to DART. DART is, what DART's called is, it's District Analysis Review Tool, the acronym, District Analysis Review Tool. So DESE puts this together, and it allows districts to make comparisons to comparable school districts. DESE in the past knew that school districts, what they would do is they would take their MCAS scores, and they would compare it to districts that are near them, right? So we would compare it to ORR, we would compare it to Bourne, compare it to Carver, and that's what all districts were doing. And they thought it would make more sense to make a comparison to comparable school districts. So if you look at this list, the districts down the left side are districts across the state. They have similar enrollment characteristics to Wareham. Similar enrollment, similar low income percent, similar special ed percent, similar EL percent. And you can see those in the first 4 or 5 columns there. And then it shows for each district the percentage of students in grades 3 to 8 who performed meeting or exceeding expectations in ELA, and then all the students in each district in math, and then it does it for grade 10, then it does it for science column, how each district performed in science, and then it shows student growth percentage for each of the districts. So it allows you to compare yourself to districts that have similar demographics. And we did quite well compared to these groups. And so I'm going to let Andrea speak a little bit to that.
I thought it would be curious to look at the DART data. Although it's not published on the Department of Ed site yet, the 2023 data, I went to each individual school to fill out the chart you saw before and just filled it in myself so that we could have it and discuss it. But I thought it would be really interesting to look at our scores from 2022 in comparison to those same districts and our scores in 2023. And I just sort of categorized them. Where were we higher? Where were we lower? And where were we the same as other districts? And I think what was really interesting about it was that in some instances we flipped the numbers. We became higher where we were lower, and so in other words, if you look at achievement 2022 for math 3 to 8, we were
we were only higher than 2 in 2022, and we were higher than 7 in 2023. And then lower, we were lower than 7, and now just lower than 3 in 2023. So I did the chart just because really I was curious. And then if you look at growth in math grades 3 to 8, we were the highest of all of the other districts. Same with growth in ELA 3 to 8, 10 of the districts we were higher. So it's not perfect. It was sort of I just looked and I thought, oh, this is rather interesting, and I thought it would be worth just looking at it that way. And then also with 10th grade, we looked at ELA and math with the same idea in mind. And we've definitely made some significant improvements from the previous year, which is always very exciting.
Okay, so we're going to move into the principals sections now. However, before we do that, I just want to, the principals, and I think school committee has heard me say this before, that there's really what we call external accountability and internal accountability. External accountability is accountability to you, accountability to the community about how our students perform. And that's what MCAS is, one form of measurement, is so the public can see how well our students are performing. It's an external accountability. And that's really what will be presented tonight. But there's also internal accountability, and that's accountability that we have to each other as educators, that the expectations are that there's full commitment to our students. We're going to look at the data of the work that they're doing, and we're going to use it to improve our instruction. Okay, so with that being said, I think our first school up is the Wareham Elementary School.
Good evening, school committee and all those watching. We're going to present our MCAS results for the Wareham Elementary School. Here with me tonight is Dr. Russo, the assistant principal, and together we will articulate the data the best we know how, and at the end of the presentation, answer any questions you may have. It's good to start out with that we are one of 66 schools in the state out of 1,740. By the way, there's a school of recognition, so it is a very big deal. And when I presented this to the staff, they said we should put it in the newspaper, and I said it was just printed in the Boston Globe. So I just want to do a shout out that our school is a school of recognition. It's the top of all of the 7 categories that DESE provides and ranks school, that we were at the top. So congratulations to the staff, the students, the families, school committee, district office and district administration, school administration, and all the stakeholders that made this happen. We're really excited, and we will have it continue. So it's important to note that we were distinguished with that honor of the School of Recognition because we improved by a 19 percentile. That plus 19 right there is huge. As you can see below, it says 5 or more points is worth celebrating, and our school went up 19. This is the grade 3 data here in ELA and mathematics. In this grade, we didn't do as well as we did in grade 4. We recognize that. It is the first year that grade 3 takes the MCAS, and it's important to note that not in 2019, 2022, or 2023 did we make the mark with the state. So it's an area that I know Dr. Russo and I and the department chairs are looking at, working on vigorously. Dr. Russo wants to share a few points of what we're going to do about this. I want to share that last year was my first year as school principal with MCAS. It was Dr. Russo's first year with MCAS. And it was the first year for department chairs. So it was a new endeavor for us. I've learned a lot about MCAS, being the administrator. I've been the teacher before, but not on this side of the coin. So here we are. So Dr. Russo, if you could just share where we're going to grow and what we're going to do about the growth needed in grade 3.
Thank you, Dr. Chandler. Good evening, committee. Several things that we are planning on and have actually began implementing is we have a new curriculum, our new CKLA Amplified curriculum, and this is grade level, so all the students are reading the same story. So currently we are in production with doing voiceovers with the students reading these stories aloud, and then doing writing pieces with this. We have found that that's where third grade needed a little bit more support, was in the writing. They were able to read and able to multiple choice rather well. They were scoring in the like 72 percentile, but where we lost our points was in the writing. So that's the key piece that we would like to work on. In addition to doing the stories and the writing with our new amplified curriculum, we are also working on a project for doing after-school tutoring with students, again, where it's novel studies and it's extra writing, and we are going to be inviting students into the school after school to work with us on that. Yeah. Right. And so in addition to that, I have to share, last year, and it's kind of a bittersweet moment when I think about it, there were only, with the ELA MCAS, we had 23 students that missed being proficient by 1 or 2 questions. And so for me, that's like we were just almost there. We had such good growth. And as far as with the third grade, we had 40 students that missed being proficient in mathematics. So we have a lot of intensive interventions. We are going to continue with those. And that's something that we want to push to be able to meet those needs of those students that just missed the mark.
We call them our 490 Club. So we recognize we have a large group of our population in the yellow. With that, those are the students who are almost there but not quite, and it's that 500. So students to be proficient need to be 500. We looked at score after score of 496, 498, 499, and we said we have just got to intervene further, farther, and better for these students, and it is in writing. Our students know how to read. We've taught them how to read, and in a few minutes you're going to see a slide from our years of teaching reading very well. Right now it's the synthesis and the production that I think that we need improvement on in Wareham Elementary School, starting at the end of grade 1, grade 2. I think our students can read it, they just don't know how to put it together and write it. So it's that synthesis of text that we're going to really, really work on. And our new program does a beautiful job of it, along with empowering writers, which we just began implementing last year. Okay, in grade 4, you can see that we were above state in both ELA and mathematics. Our SGP was 54, opposed to the state, which was 49, and 62 in mathematics, opposed to the state at 50. Yes, and we're at state for meeting and exceeding, so we're at there. It's not yellow. We didn't highlight it, but maybe we should. It's bold. We'll choose a different color. But so we are at state for meeting and exceeding there. Why 4th grade? Why does it happen? It actually, if you look at, well, no, if you don't look at the trend there. I think this is, with grade 4, this is what happened here. Grade 4 had pretty nice small group sizes last year. It was their first year in Boost. They worked tremendously hard on getting it, and I really feel like they worked tremendously hard on the writing piece. I think that they left their traditionally, they were teaming of math and English, and they went back into teaching full classrooms of math and English, and then they boosted together. And I think, and right there, it made a difference. And I can't say, objectively, I can say also, attendance played a huge part in this. If you look at what we've done, we got 4s up and down all the way through. Our kids were in school every day, so that counts. Here's our subgroups, and you can see where we did well here. I do have the numbers of those students on a different page here if you do want to know how many students that this results in with it that's highlighted there. I think you have another slide. And here's our grade 4 ELA and mathematics in our subgroups in all of the areas where we were above the state, both in meeting and exceeding, and our SGP, which is our growth scores. Dr. Schwam is excited. She wanted to give you a timeline of where we are at because we're a school of recognition. Her and I are going to tell it together as a bit of a story. And so I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Schwam and then take it from there.
I'm good. I got it. I can't explain. I'll get teary, but when the news came that this had happened, I think it was overwhelming. Because it's been a long time coming, and it's been a lot of work. It wasn't just in a minute, and it wasn't just in a year. The transformation that has happened in the last 10 years has been miraculous, and now we have this important milestone that actually, that proves without a doubt that we're heading in the right direction. And thank goodness for that. When I arrived in Wareham and collected data, the end of 2015, we were 60% below the norm in kindergarten at the end of kindergarten, in the red. There was no orange. It was 60% red. And that, to me, signaled an emergency. And in first grade, those same students, well, technically, same cohort, were still at the beginning of first grade like they had never been to school at all. They were at 60% below the norm. And so I was very upset about that. How do you fix that, right? We had interventionists at some point, but the budget couldn't support them, and they had been making a difference, and this was prior to me being here, but then they had to let them go. How do you intervene with 60% of your students? Like, what's the answer to that when you have budget constraints and other things to consider? And we just serendipitously, I met a person who was doing work with the brain, and it made so much sense what she was saying. And so we started to work with her, and it wasn't easy. People fight transformation, right? They don't trust it, obviously. It's risky. But in actuality now, the research supports all the work that we started, which is good because we didn't have the research at that time, but now it's saying that everything that we were doing was heading in the right direction. And little by little, teachers started to carry on, and we collect data, and we'd look at that data, and we keep moving. And then they contributed to what we were doing. And so what happened was it began as one thing, and it built into something fantastic as a result of the collaboration and all of the voices of families and teachers and administrators, all contributing to solving this problem. And it's just an amazing thing. And we were also worried about math, because we were concerned if we were focusing so much on literacy that we would lose our ability to actually be successful at math. And if we're looking at this year, anyway, the 4th grade results, we did better even in math. So I'm happy to know that those skills that we're making sure students have are transferred to math, because at least we know right now. I'll be more sure one more year out. Like, I need to see more data. But I think that where we're going is amazing, and it's secure, and we know why. and we know what we need to continue to do. And so that feels really good.
And it's important to note that this has changed over time. We've just improved and improved. Our data collection wasn't perfect. It was slow. Our tests weren't perfect. They were slow. The curriculum we were using in 2017 at DECUS was slow. We just weren't picking up the pace fast enough, and our children weren't learning how to read, and we were taking too much time. And over time, we've changed testing. We've a few times actually, to where we're at NUIA now. We've changed how we do the data walls. We're making it more efficient so the teachers have the data right away. We've just implemented new reading and math program based on teacher feedback, and CKLA started, I do have to say, with Carrie. And then to find that there's this program out. And there's still work to be done. We know that. We get it, but it keeps morphing into something better and better, and that's why we're going to continue to see the improvement at the elementary school. And here's Ms. Cote, also showing great results.
Good evening. Wareham Middle School. Can you move to the next slide, Andrea?
Of course.
So I love data. When you look at our accountability rating, if you go all the way back to the dawn of day, Wareham Middle School could not get out of 15, 16. We were the reason the district was a level school district way back when we had a different accountability system. So at some point, we took a turn. That point happened, sorry, I have a ton of papers. Why can't I find, oh, it's right in front of me. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. It took a turn in 2018 when our accountability went to 20. We climbed to 26 in 2019. Unfortunately, COVID hit and we didn't get some rankings. But then in 2022, we were 33, and now we are 39. So that's a lot. I went a little further into Dr. Schwam's data with DART districts. I went and got their accountability number for every single district that was comparable to Wareham. And I did the middle school in particular. I did not do the high school or the elementary schools. Wareham Middle School is the highest at 39 in comparison to every other middle school that we're comparable to. We double the accountability percentage of 7 of those districts. So I think that that's impressive. I'm not happy with just that because we are going to be compared to ORR. ORR is at 56. We're at 39 and climbing. Bourne is at 33. We're at 39 and climbing. Carver is at 45. We're at 39 and climbing. Let's also remember, though, ORR, Bourne, and Carver. You can look right on the site. Everyone has access to it. Do not have the demographics that Wareham have. They do not even come close to our demographics. So when you look at Wareham's demographic, 74% high needs, 70% low income. None of the surrounding towns come close to our demographics. When you look at our accountability, and you look specifically at our scaled scores and our achievement, Wareham Middle School is not where we want to be, but we are climbing. And so when I tell you that we are climbing, we have climbed out of the depths of hell.
Yep.
And that was in 2014, 2015. Yep. That wasn't too long ago. When you look, and when Dr. Chandler says we're at 491, 496. Yes, that's still not where we want to be. We want to be at that 500 and above. But when we look at our achievement data, this isn't an excuse, this is a reality. We're an upside down triangle. And we have to climb our way out of the depths of hell to turn that around. That upside down triangle is 20% are at the top, they're proficient, and 80% aren't. When you have that, there is no way possible to get out of that in a year, 2 years, 3 years. It takes climbing every single year. So am I confident that we're going to get there? Yes, I'm confident. And I'll tell you why. You've had these numbers, so I'm not going to go over all of them. But there are highlights of where we beat the state, but we don't need to beat the state. We need to be better than the state.
What do you want me?
I'll go back and tell you the other stuff. Sorry. We are at student growth percentile. The subgroups, sorry.
Oh, subgroups, okay.
Sorry, I went off.
That's okay. I'm good with it. That's what I'm here for.
I'm Catherine Fain.
I'm like, is she going to stop?
I'm Catherine Fain. I'm the assistant principal of special education. So this area in particular is my favorite thing to think about and talk about in terms of data. And I find Ms. Cote's presentation particularly moving because in special education, our subgroups, we're not always looking for perfection. We're looking for progress. And I think what you'll find is a general trend throughout all of these grades and in all of the tests, both ELA and math, you'll see a general trend towards the SGP growth. And grade 5 in both ELA, sorry, Ms. Cote got me all confused about where I am right now. You'll see that we've grown in most categories greater than 8% SGP in all ELA, and in math, in most categories greater than 10 percentile points. When we get to grade 6, I certainly think this is an area we recognize. Sorry, I kind of skipped over science because I'm talking about growth percentiles. In SGP, I think that this is certainly an area we recognize in ELA that we want to make some improvements on. And when we're reflecting on our data here, this is an area that we recognize and we're reflecting on. In terms of math, though, we are again seeing some great trends in there with growth around 8% points in most of the categories. And in 7th grade, again, I think we're back on trend here with our SGP is mirroring our 5th grade, our percentages. So I agree with Ms. Cote that, again, we are just climbing, we're showing growth over time, and that is the goal, is progress.
Not to skip over science because I went off on different ones, but science is a test that is unique. It's not unique for Wareham, but it's unique in that it's a 3-year test. So the standards are across 3 grade levels. And so that's what makes it really challenging. Think about what you did 3 years ago and take a test on it. It's really, really difficult for our 5th graders. It's difficult for our 8th graders. It's hard when those standards are taken across 3 years. The standards changed. The test has changed, and the state in their infinite wisdom is changing the test and piloting that this year with some districts. So it is a struggle. Every year it's a struggle. We have wonderful teachers that are trying to keep up with the changes, but again, definitely an area that's needed for growth. What caused the results? I'm focusing on the positive. What caused is us to climb each year since that 2000 and I can't remember when. I don't know. What caused that? This is what causes it. And I have to say that we have a wonderful staff. So do we use the results? We start off with the results on day number 1. The teachers have the results in their hands. There's, some cheers, some tears, and we move on with it. We talk about the growth, we talk about the achievement, and then we go forward with what the game plan is. And I do have to say that this year, last year, the year before, my teachers asked for more data than you could imagine because they track that with NUIA that we do 3 times a year. They track that with MCAS. We tie that to what we're teaching. And it's a tribute to everyone at Wareham Middle School, the paras, the teachers, the families that ask, what can we do at home? Could you please, do some flashcards with them? Their automaticity isn't there yet. So the results that we're seeing is a collaboration, and it's everything. There's not just one factor. I can't attribute what we do to one factor. It's everything. So those are the things I put up there, but I could name probably 10 more, and so couldn't my staff. But it's not the curriculum. It's what we're doing. It's the children we have in front of us and the progress that we're continuing to make.
Okay, just go on to the next slide. Oh, thank you. So, the next slide, if you focus on number 2 on the top left, we're in a pretty unique position because, as was mentioned by Brendan earlier, having 8 through 12 is a unique dynamic, although it's good to hear that Mr. Bajoli is dealing with 7 through 12 now. But it really changes the way that we're rated because we kind of get grouped into 2 different groups versus a traditional 9 through 12 or K through 8 makeup. But with that being said, we're excited about the improvement. I feel like we have the recipe to get back to where we once were. Frankly, it's very frustrating with what's been done with the dismantling of our core classes. I'm glad to say we're back to where we were as far as core classes being run. Those are our courses to remediate students that may not have the skills they need to be successful with the MCAS in either 8th grade or 10th grade. But we are excited about the improvement. Like everyone has said, we're certainly not settling. We're looking to continue with the improvement and certainly feel that the trajectory is headed in the right direction. There are some pieces to keep in mind, and just the next gen test came out in 19, and in the first year 8th grade tested at WHS was that same year. DESE, as was mentioned, indicated that improvement of 5 is worth celebrating, so certainly we celebrate and then we continue to move on and focus on the numbers. So this is our slide for our grade 8 ELA. I'm going to talk about a tough situation that we dealt with in a little while with an 8th grade student last year, which you're probably familiar with, but it was a very difficult testing environment to say the least, and I will get into that later on. I'll save that for a future slide, but certainly I feel the 8th grade ELA took a little bit of a hit last year. We'll talk about that again. In math, I feel like they've shown improvement, and I really think with the core classes, we'll see the improvement even better next year as we get those results, as we get a full year of having the core classes in. Science achievement, we made an adjustment in science, and I think it's going to pay off. You may remember when we came to you for the course of studies a year and a half ago, we looked to move biology into the freshman year, and we really felt like at the time it was the right move. And so in 2022 we kind of had a mixed with physics and bio, but in 2023 it was the first year of the bio. So I really feel like in 2024 having a second year with bio is going to really allow us to make some improvements there. So we're excited about that. I am going to turn it over to Andrea Cannon, who's going to talk to you about the next couple slides.
So to reiterate what Catherine said, I'm going to talk about the SGP, and that's something that I like to focus on. It's probably my special ed background, but I like to look at growth. So when you're looking at our ELA, in the special ed and the high need cohort, we're right there. We're not highlighted in yellow, but 40. Oh, okay. I had 44 to 45 and 46 to 47 with growth there. So, we need to. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So,
we're making some improvements in English. We are making adjustments this year, which we'll talk about in 2 slides. But with our grade 8 math and special ed low income and high need, we're close to the SGP. And I'll talk about for the causes why we think that we're seeing that in those subgroup areas. When we go to the science on the next slide, again, we're pretty close. The numbers are on par with state, one below, one above. We're on par with the state there. One thing that we did notice in analyzing the data over time is that one of the standards, inheritance and variation of traits, was one of the areas that we did low in, and that really impacted the kids' scores. So I know here we're just looking at the overall scores, but those are the standards that we need to change and we need to work on.
So transitioning to grade 10, where you see the state for grade 10 ELA remain consistent. We are able to report gains with percentage of our students who are meeting and exceeding expectations. It's a 9-point increase from the prior year. And then we also see a slight increase in our average scale score from 493 to 496, with that 7-point increase in student growth percentile. For grade 10 math, we see also gains, 7-point increase in our meet and exceeding expectations. Our average scaled score is pretty much back to where we were before the pandemic. And that data point that stands out is we have the SGP within 3 percentile points of the state. So that was a gain of 11 points from the prior year, so some pretty significant gains in math. Obviously, still some continued work to do in regards to state comparisons, but the growth is really promising, and looking forward to continuing that. Then if you go into the subgroups, so for grade 10 ELA, you can see how that breaks down, and I think here is where we certainly acknowledge there's work to do. Mr. Murray and his department have worked on breaking down the standards quite extensively, and they're identifying gaps in writing, and then specifically working on building the vocabulary, building and broadening students' vocabulary as areas of focus for this year, given the data that you see there. In regards to grade 10 math, we have that special ed higher average scaled score than the state. And then our low income group has a higher SGP than our state number as well. High needs, again, slightly higher SGP there. So some gains for grade 10 math worth celebrating as well.
So when we promised the future slide, we get into a little more detail. So with the 8th grade, we're going to talk about, I'll talk about kind of the areas where the cause and some things we're working on. And then Andrea's going to talk about the positives of what we've done that's really helped us with these scores. So I've been involved in MCAS since they began, and I've never seen a tougher environment than what we had with the 8th grade students. We had a student that passed away, unfortunately, in the middle of MCAS testing, and we had just completed the English, and we were on to the science and then the math. I've never seen so many kids not being able to complete the test in full tears, and the timing was really tough because the science was directly after he passed, and the math was pretty much right after he was laid to rest. So it was a very difficult situation. I do think it had a tremendous impact on quite a few students. And the focus really wasn't where it should have been at that time, understandably so. As we all have gone through the second year of COVID, it's really cool to see, this year we're really at a different setting in regards to the start of the school year, kind of year 3. But year 2, we still had a lot of hiccups in dealing with social and emotional concerns and having students coming out of the pandemic. We experimented last year with changing the structure of the test administration. Quite frankly, we were not satisfied with the way we did that. We are going to go back to the way we previously administered the test for students that didn't need accommodations. We did it on a larger scale previously, and frankly, we tried to break it down into smaller scales and use the classroom, and it didn't create the environment that we wanted for 8th graders. So we're going to go back to utilizing a large area of the school to test a large number of students. I know when I looked at this, I said, how are people going to read this about the dean, specifically for grade 8, but that was a huge hire for us in regards to really creating, the testing environment is, in my opinion, is created day one of the school year. It's not created on day 140 when you do your MCAS testing. It's created day one, and having a dean for the last year, for the first year, just I think made a significant impact. And having them obviously focused on the 8th grade and setting the table, so to speak, before they start their high school career was very important for us to create the appropriate environment. It was very difficult the year before without having that dean. As you may remember, we had last year a NEAS visit, and the NEAS visit is quite intense, and the preparation for the NEAS visit takes 2 years. So unfortunately, we really had to focus on any PD time, any in-service time that we had to focus for 2 years on the NEAS process. Obviously, the time was worth it in regards to the report we received, but it also didn't allow us to spend a lot of time on curriculum and instruction as we traditionally would have in a non-NEAS cycle. Just the question bank and practice from DESE has not been updated for many years. That's just something we have to work through. 2023 was the first time 8th graders ever participated in science MCAS testing. And I mentioned before earlier, we eliminated a science teacher. There is a computer science component to the curriculum that's being tested, and unfortunately it's no longer offered. So it does have an impact on the students that were taking that course. Again, not every student took the course, but it did benefit those that were able to take the computer science course in 8th grade. And there was, at the time, there were a large percentage of 8th graders that were really excited about taking the computer science course and really enjoyed it. It was probably the #1 elective chosen by 8th graders in the high school at the time. I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, who's going to talk about the last two, which I think we wanted to end on really some positive things that we're doing. So I'm going to let her be positive because she's overly positive.
So we were really diving into like our scores. Why do our scores look like this? What do we need to look at? And so while we were talking about it, we noticed that when you look at our subgroups, our special ed, low income, and high need seem to be like on par, above the state. Like those areas look good. So what did we do? Why did this happen? And then our area of concern is like the meeting and exceeding expectations. So we thought about it and we started to talk. We actually looked at the NEAS report because they give you strengths, weaknesses of the school, things like that. So when we dove into everything, we noticed that it began pre-pandemic that we started to focus on like social emotional learning and the needs of the students and struggles that we saw the students having, but post-pandemic, we definitely noticed it. And so mental health and social emotional learning was like a big focus of ours. So we started with really going into depth and like tier 2 interventions. So we started a directed support class where we picked those high need kids and we put them into a directed support class to work with them. We have a BCBA working in the school. We did 6 different groups where we chose high need students, special ed, non-special ed, but high need students to put into these mindfulness groups and substance abuse and all these different areas of concern. So we implemented Viking Block, where during Viking Block, students who have A's and B's don't necessarily need to go see their teachers, but it's kind of mandated that the kids who are failing classes or struggling in classes go to Viking Block and work with their teachers. We had a big connection with the court, with CRAs, and we started the Connect program because we had the most kids we've ever had come out of hospitalization. So obviously that's very important. It was very important post-pandemic to focus on, but when we thought about it, it was like all our effort kind of went into that tier 2, the tier 2 interventions, and it was something that came out in the NEAS report as well. But now we have all that in place now, and that's great, and that we'll keep doing what we're doing, but we really need to go back and we need to focus on the tier 1 interventions in the classroom and really looking at curriculum and instruction. And we'll talk about it, I think, in the November school committee meeting, like all the changes we've made. We definitely are making really substantial changes, but that's kind of what we think caused the results, why those specific subgroups did so much better, but maybe our middle of the road higher end kids, we're not seeing the growth we want there. We're not seeing the push there.
All right, and we'll move on to grade 10, and a little repetition here, so I'll kind of bypass the NEAS. We've already talked about that, recovering from the pandemic. I do want to highlight the staffing challenges. I know we've talked about this a number of times, and it's not unique to Wareham High School, it's not unique to the district, it's not unique to the area. It is getting very difficult to find qualified applicants for many of our jobs, and it is an issue, and I think it's even more of an issue at the middle and high school than elementary, although Bethany would probably argue with me that there are some positions that are very difficult, I'm sure, at the elementary school to fill. But that's something that we deal with. You know, we've had positions that we haven't been able to fill for multiple years. Last year, we had a special ed position that we had open the whole year. We had 3 paraprofessional positions open the whole year. And again, not unique to the high school. Other schools are dealing with the same issue. We're all in it together, but that does have an impact. And then when you find a body, it may not be a qualified body, you may have a long-term sub in there, so the level of experience is going to be a lot different. So we're battling through that, but I can tell you it definitely has had an impact on our courses, and specifically, we had a long-term sub in for a math position all last year in grade 10, and that had an impact. So just some things we battle through, but going back to ending with a positive note, I'm going to turn it over to Kim, who's going to talk to you more specifically about some of the things we've done in grade 10 that have had a positive impact.
So you heard a really extensive, I think really well described description from Ms. Cannon about the Tier 2 interventions. And so those interventions really helped us across our school in all grade levels. Grade 10 saw a huge, great increase there because of that. And so those students, if you think about it now, have had, by the time they get to 10th grade, they start with us in 8th grade, they're on 3 years of being able to have those Tier 2 interventions. And so those gains were seen in that way. We also, with the Tier 2 interventions, we have the Student Support Council, which is working. They also look at the data, specifically the EWIS data, Early Warning Intervention System, and that's based on MCAS scores, attendance, discipline. And so that process has really tightened up. We're able to meet and identify those where the Tier 2 interventions are necessary. Those were also identified in our NEAS report as an area accommodation. And then as far as the last one, you saw the growth that we're seeing in the math classes. Edulastic has been a great tool for us to use, not just in our core classes, but also in our other classes that impact MCAS. And the nice thing about that is it's a great assessment tool to give students access to testing and how it will look when they do the MCAS in the spring. So that is something that we've been doing and we plan to continue and expand.
That's a lot. Thank you. I appreciate the detail in the slides you gave us and the information that we asked for that you had given us. Thank you. So, April.
So I don't have too many questions because you guys did provide a lot of information. So you answered a lot of questions that I would have had already. I know that the cohorts that you guys have been able to follow, it's only been a short period of time relatively post-COVID that you guys have been able to follow. And I don't know that from the elementary level that we've started, it hasn't trickled up to the high school yet. So the improvements that you guys have seen at the elementary school, I know Tracy, you said you were starting to see those kind of come up into the middle school. So I can only assume that based on a lot of the early interventions and the literacy push at the elementary school, that is starting to, those students that those programs were implemented for are starting to make their way up. So unfortunately, the current state of the high school has yet to see the benefits of the programs we've implemented in the younger grades. But Tracy, you said you are starting to see some of those improvements come through the middle school?
Well, we have the benefit of having Bethany's 4th grade class that did phenomenal. So they're in our 5th grade. So,
okay.
You know, they're around 40%, 43, 44% for meeting or exceeding in ELA and math. We haven't seen that in years.
So I can only just hope that that's going to continue to make its way up. And I know that your analogy of an upside down pyramid is really great. So right now you guys are building, and it is, kind of filtering its way up, which is great. And Andrea, I was really glad to hear you mention and recognize that all of the supports that we've made for the high need students, as well as we've made mention in the elementary students, that you've recognized that the middle of the road students have sort of been kind of left to their own devices, where we had so many advanced classes with the IB and the AP and the dual enrollment, kind of given their own little subsect. So I am glad to hear that you guys have recognized that lost portion of the population, which I would think, I know we do have a high need population, but those tend to be the kids we lose to neighboring districts. So I am glad to hear that you recognize that the focus needs to kind of shift and level off in those. So I appreciated that, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Joyce?
So my questions that I had prepared to ask, you all already answered. So I'm not going to ask those questions, mostly around how you were using the information today going forward. But I did just want to say, first of all, congratulations. Sorry. Congratulations to the elementary school on being a school of recognition. That is a very big accomplishment. Tracy, thank you for doing that extra analysis. That is really interesting, those comparisons, because you're right. That's exactly where we go to. So thank you for doing that. And yeah, at the high school, the work that you've done to really dig into where your attention needs to be is really impressive, so thank you. So I look forward to hearing, like you said, in November, about, what you will do with that information. I do just have one question. So all of you, what would you say is the most important piece of data in this? Would you say it's the SGP, the growth? Is that the most important? Okay.
I would also like to add that the internal accountability is what we really pay attention to, because and we neglected that because it's a little complicated. So we thought it would just muddy the waters. But essentially what that gives us is, it tells us where we are. Jesse sets a target for us based on where we are. And then we're given points. And achievement is weighted higher versus growth in the formula. And then there are and it changes because there are other requirements at the high school that are not at the younger grades. But that data right there lets us be able to see, are we actually making progress with what we're doing in that year, and what do we need to change, or how do we influence our instruction moving forward? The achievement is the achievement. It is what it is. But if we do it right, that will just take care of itself, right? So we pay attention to that internal accountability. And you can see all of those scores on the school district profile. Massachusetts, you go in and hit accountability and then get details, and it will give you all of that information. I dig into that. It's really important for us to know that.
Well, and that was a very clear explanation of SGP, probably the best that I've seen, so thank you for that. And it's clear that there was a lot of work that went into this presentation, so we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Ditto to that also, but I want to also congratulate you for your candor, because every one of you said we still have a ways to go. There's a lot of work to do. We're not trying to hide from that, being transparent about that, and there's no silver bullet. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of interventions, a lot of remediation, and as a team, I think we're going to get there, and it isn't going to be overnight. We all know that, but you have to admit that there's some issues to attack those issues, and we've done that. So I thank you for that, too. Any other questions from anybody on the committee?
Jeff, have
Well,
a question?
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, do we have any other business? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Swett, if you're there, we'll take an aye.
Jeff, are you there, or are you frozen? No, I see him blinking.
2 blinks for an aye.